For 30 years, the Premier League was the gold standard of sporting commerce. It was built on the foundation of a collective agreement, 20 clubs bound by a single, shared goal, to build the most lucrative entertainment product on earth. The genius of the league wasn't just the talent on the pitch, it was the appearance of a unified front in the boardroom. But as we move through 2026, that mask of unity has finally slipped, revealing a fractured landscape of self-interest. What we are witnessing today isn't just a standard legal dispute or a disagreement over TV rights. It is a fundamental civil war that is tearing at the very foundations of English football. The collective that made the league a global superpower is being dismantled from the inside out. At the heart of this collapse is a profound paradox. The very rules designed to ensure fair play and financial stability have been weaponized. They are no longer shields to protect the game. They are the primary weapons of choice for the league's most powerful assets as they engage in a high-stakes game of corporate sabotage. The era of the league as a family is dead. In its place is a cold, litigious reality where the boardroom has replaced the pitch as the most important theater of operation. This is the autopsy of a system that is quite literally eating itself. The pitch is no longer where the Premier League is won or lost. Today, the most significant results are delivered in high-security hearing rooms in central London. The transition was gradual, then it was total. It started with a simple idea: financial fair play. A set of regulations meant to keep clubs from spending into extinction and ensuring that the dream of sustainability was more than just a buzzword. But in an era of sovereign wealth funds and private equity giants, sustainability has taken on a different, darker meaning. To the established elite, it became a code word for protectionism, a way to pull up the ladder and ensure that the traditional hierarchy remained untouched. To the new money, it was an illegal barrier to trade. We are currently seeing the results of this philosophical divide. The Premier League's executive office has transitioned from being a governing body to acting as a permanent prosecution office. When you treat your biggest stars like defendants, the relationship doesn't just fray, it breaks. Since the charges were first leveled against Manchester City in February 2023, the league has been locked in a cycle of litigation that has cost its members millions in legal fees alone. We have moved from discussing 4-3-3 formations to discussing the nuances of fair market value, from analyzing wingbacks to analyzing witness statements. The spectacle of the game has been replaced by the grind of the subpoena. For the fans, this creates a toxic atmosphere of uncertainty. When every goal is followed by a mental calculation of a potential points deduction, the emotional investment in the sport begins to erode. We are witnessing the arrival of the accountants era, where the final table isn't decided in May on the grass, but months later in a courtroom, far away from the eyes of the public. To keep the momentum and hit that 9:30 target, we need to dive deep into the specific legal weaponry that is currently shredding the league's unity. The Premier League's rulebook was once a shared social contract. Today, it has become a minefield of litigation and suspicion. Every new amendment, every subtle change in wording, is now viewed through a lens of defensive warfare. We are no longer seeing rules created for the good of the game. We are seeing rules created to neutralize specific rivals. The Big Six, the power block that once dictated the league's global strategy, has effectively dissolved into warring factions. On one side, you have the traditional giants who are desperate to maintain the status quo. To them, the current restrictions are a necessary barrier to prevent the total distortion of the market by state-backed wealth. On the other side, you have the new titans who view these same rules as an illegal restraint of trade, a cartel designed to prevent anyone from challenging the established order. At the center of this firestorm is the battle over associated party transactions, or APT rules. These are the regulations that govern sponsorship deals between clubs and companies linked to their owners. In late 2024 and throughout 2025, this conflict escalated into a landmark tribunal that declared parts of the league's system void and unenforceable. The fallout from this was catastrophic for the league's reputation. It wasn't just a legal defeat, it was a public exposure of procedural unfairness. The tribunal found that the league had been discriminatory in its exclusion of shareholder loans, the interest-free money that many owners use to keep their clubs afloat. By targeting sponsorship while ignoring these loans, the league had inadvertently created a system that favored one type of billionaire over another. When a league spends more on top-tier legal counsel than some clubs spend on their entire midfield, the product is in a state of decay. We are seeing legal bills for these cases alone estimated to be in the tens of millions, money that should be going back into the clubs, the academies, and the stadiums. Instead, it is being funneled into a permanent cycle of arbitration and appeal. The entry of state-backed ownership changed the mathematics of English football forever, but the Premier League was fundamentally unprepared for the consequences of its own invitation. For years, the league's executive office celebrated the prestige, the astronomical TV deals, and the influx of world-class talent that came with sovereign wealth. It was, for a time, the ultimate endorsement of the Premier League's global dominance. But as we sit here in 2026, the paradox has become impossible to ignore. As soon as that investment threatened to permanently dismantle the traditional hierarchy of the old guard, the league attempted to retroactively build a cage around the very clubs it had once welcomed with a red carpet. This is the precise point where the collective broke. The core of the breaking conflict is a fundamental disagreement over what a football club is allowed to be. Is it a community asset governed by domestic sporting rules, or is it a global vehicle for soft power and state-level investment? You cannot invite a sovereign state to the table and then tell them they aren't allowed to use their primary resources to compete. This tension reached a boiling point in late 2025 when the legal battle over associated party transactions turned into an open war of words. The league's attempt to tighten sponsorship rules was met not just with a defense, but with an accusation of tyranny of the majority. The clubs with state backing argued that the league's new regulations were not about financial sustainability, but about a targeted suppression of their growth. When the rules of the game are treated as a tool for suppression, the losers don't just accept the defeat. They litigate until the system itself becomes a liability. We are now seeing the fallout of that tactical error. The Premier League is no longer just fighting its clubs. It is, in some cases, navigating the diplomatic complexities of international relations. The line between a sporting organization and a political regulator has been blurred to the point of erasure. As we move deeper into 2026, the Premier League has entered a state of permanent limbo. The high-profile cases that were supposed to provide clarity have instead provided only more questions. The 115 charges against Manchester City, once seen as a definitive moment for the league's authority, have become a ghost in the machine. Even as initial hearings conclude, the looming threat of years of appeals means that the shadow over the trophy remains. This state of limbo is doing more damage to the brand than any single verdict ever could. It has created a vacuum where trust between the league, the clubs, and the fans has completely evaporated. When the result of a match can be overturned months later by a panel of accountants and lawyers, the beautiful game loses its primary appeal, the finality of the whistle. Experts are now warning that the league has made a fatal error by prioritizing litigation over negotiation. By allowing lawyers to dictate the future of the sport, the Premier League has surrendered its own sovereignty. The best league in the world is currently a house divided, paralyzed by the fear of the next injunction. It is a system that has become so obsessed with the letter of the law that it has forgotten the spirit of the competition. The bridges haven't just been burned, they have been dismantled and sold for scrap. The unified front that built this multi-billion-dollar empire has been replaced by a fractured landscape of 20 separate businesses, each waiting for the other to slip up so they can file the next lawsuit. The Premier League finds itself in a fight it cannot simply win. A guilty verdict leads to years of further appeals. An innocent one leads to a total collapse of the league's regulatory authority. The collective is dead. The clubs have realized that the rules are negotiable and the regulators are vulnerable. The league isn't just changing, it is eating itself from the inside out. When the dust finally settles, the Premier League, as we once knew it, the meritocratic, unified peak of global sport, will be a memory. The autopsy is complete. The cause of death wasn't a lack of money, it was an abundance of greed. If you want to see the next autopsy before the headlines catch up, consider subscribing to the channel. We go beyond the pitch to uncover the real stories driving the game. Thank you for watching GoalLine Stories.